Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, and just all around good guy, John Obolewski. Good morning, John. How are you?
Hey Jim, I'm good and I'm better because we spent about 20 minutes chatting before recording today and just catching up with each
Cheater.
other. It's
Yeah,
always a blast to
it's
do that.
good.
So my
It's
day's
good.
good.
To quote you, we better press record or we're going to chatter like monkeys all day. I think that's a direct quote. And it's true. We would chatter. We should go fishing for no other reason than to not be in a rush. No other
Right.
appointment, just the next fish and just talk and talk and talk. I
I
love
don't
it.
even have to bait my hook, I just sit there and
Right.
just sit with you and talk.
Hey,
But yeah,
I'm excited about episode 193 because there was
yeah,
something that was said recently, and we both kind of like we should talk about that because I don't think I've ever heard that phrase that way, and
yeah.
it inspired me to start using that phrase. You want to give us kind of an introduction to 193?
Sure. So last month you and I attended the annual ministers meeting for our tribe.
Yeah,
And it was a great time,
it
reconnecting with
was.
friends.
Yeah,
You did some training, I did some training there, and we received some training
yeah,
as well. One of our guest speakers asked this question, and this really kind of is the basis of what we want to talk about in this episode. He said this: "What are you 40 days away from if you tried and had a plan?"
right. Wow, it still
And
messes me up. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like it's just that mechanism that it's such a great time frame because it's not for the rest of your life and it's not this afternoon because the rest of my life is too daunting and this
yes,
afternoon I know is not going to make a difference. So 40
yep,
days, what are you 40 days away from if you tried and you had a plan?
correct. As I was writing that down, that sentence down in my phone, I get a text from you right away. And you said, John, this question would make a good podcast. And
Yes.
so here we are,
Yeah.
talking about it. And so, Jim, since that meeting that happened four weeks or so ago, I've been thinking about that question a lot. And here are a few thoughts on what we might be 40 days away from if we tried and
Right
had a
on.
plan.
Yeah.
And as I was thinking about this particular episode, I thought, should we just ease ourselves into this? And then I thought, no, we're just going to dive right in and we're going to step on
Yeah.
toes immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna go right at it. So what would happen over the next 40 days if you tried and had a plan to get into better physical shape?
Yeah.
You see
Great
what I'm
time of year
saying?
for it. Yeah.
We're
Great.
meddling right now.
Right. I had a pastor once. He said, "I'm not here to step on your toes. I'm here to break both your legs." That's a break both your legs start.
Yeah. And I guess the reason we're starting with that one is um I do think that physical fitness is undervalued
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
in the ministry. Um, we at the college I went to, it was highly prized. I went to Oral Roberts University,
Yeah.
and at Oral Roberts, you took a phys ed class every semester.
Uh,
And they had this elaborate program to help gain what they I can't remember the name of the points. They had a certain name for these points that you accumulate, and you could accumulate
right.
them by running, you could accumulate them by walking. Anyhow, aerobic points, that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Aerobic points. And you got a letter grade for this course, so it
Right.
impacted your GPA. So in
Mm,
college, it was emphasized. But you get busy in the ministry sometimes, right?
yeah.
And life
Yeah.
happens and kids start coming and finding time to care for your body
Yeah.
seems to lose importance. But I
Yeah.
had some questions that under this one, I'm just going to throw them out and then I'd like
Right.
you to respond. You know, what would happen over the next 40 days if we had dessert only once a week or a sweet treat once a week? What would happen?
Yeah.
Uh, might be a little sadder, but
Um,
what would happen if we walked 4 times a week for 30 minutes
yeah.
or visited the gym 3 times a week?
Yeah.
Um, you can go to the gym for $10 a month,
Right.
which is less than a Netflix
Right.
subscription.
Yeah.
Um, and what impact would being in better physical shape have on our energy,
Right.
uh, our decision making, our focus, our productivity? And so I wanted to
Yeah.
just toss that over to you and just get some thoughts from you, Jim, on this first piece, because pastors don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
And for me, this part of my life is the biggest battle
Mm.
that I have, I believe, is fighting that tendency
Yeah.
to not pay attention to my physical well-being.
Yeah. I a couple of thoughts come to mind is that the thought of endorphins, that vigorous physical exercise produces in the brain the substance we crave when we're addicts to heroin. There, in other words, we call it in the running world, the nature's heroin is endorphins. It's exerting yourself. So think of it this way: I can make myself feel better and de-stressed by a huge plate of food followed by a huge bowl of ice cream, and afterwards have nothing but regret. But it does produce endorphins. The
Right.
other thing I can do is I can go for a walk. I can go for a swim. I can work in the yard, which I enjoy to do, pushing a lawnmower. I can, and then you look back and something's been done. Adam has tended the garden. It's satisfying. You've broken a good sweat. You're out there for an hour, even though it felt like half an hour because you lost track of time, whatever that activity is, and you get endorphins. So either way, we need to stay emotionally healthy. You know, every once in a while, the occurrence of feel good hormones. If we don't get them, then we feel nothing. We were talking the other day about, what does depression feel like? Generally, it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
You're not happy. You're not sad. You're just not. Your soul is just not anymore.
I
And
use the word numb.
yes,
Uh, and there is with most depression there is deep sadness, but
yes,
overarching it, at least for me, was this feeling of being numb
yes,
emotionally. So just
yeah.
to give
I
you my
was I
thoughts
was
on that one.
very I first moved back to Michigan from Arizona. Arizona, the sun always shines. In Michigan, 9 months out of the year is winter or fall or spring, which the sun doesn't shine much. And I went through
Right.
that seasonal affective disorder every year. Suffered from some sort of a malaise, some sort of a blue, some sort of a every January, February, caught on to it, started scheduling missions trips to sunny places. And so I go to Haiti. Nobody goes to Haiti to cheer up except me that I'm aware of. I went to Haiti to cheer up physically because I needed vitamin D. But then my wife and I at 40 started distance running. And I have not suffered from depression since at 40, and now I'm 57.
So
So
fascinating.
17 years of being in the ministry without an episode of seasonal affective disorder, some of it being sunshine, some of it being fresh air, but some of it being just exercising. And I noticed when I got injured, I just recently had surgery, can't
Yeah.
work out. Then my body says, well, if you can't do this to get it, what are the other ways to get this pleasure?
Right.
That don't require effort. And here comes the pasta. Here comes a big
Mhm.
plate of one cheeseburger. Two must be twice as good at the barbecue. That kind of thing. So it
Yeah.
is. I agree completely that our I'll say this the right way because we struggle in different ways. Some people just naturally thin and it requires nothing of them. But in some ways, it isn't. And I'm just trying to be sensitive here. It can be a discredit to the gospel we preach if our physical appearance shows that we don't care. Um, and again,
I think
different.
that's what I think that's well said.
Yeah, yeah. I had one chin about 10 years ago. You know what I mean? I'm naming the second chin dessert here. You know what I mean? So you're this first point makes my second chin nervous, and I'm glad, but we need to be challenged because it won't come naturally when I'm tired. It won't come naturally when I'm blue. To tell somebody that's going through a difficult time, you need to do more. Like that's a hard thing to say, but this is more like more ice cream. It just comes in a different form. Physically exercising, exerting yourself purges the soul, clears the mind. The best sermons I've ever preached came out of long runs, not from a dish of ice cream. So it's hard to say we need to do more, but you need to do more. Get up earlier, stay up later, but get those reps in. If you don't, you'll suffer, and everyone around the leader suffers when the leader suffers.
So we think, 40 days
Yeah,
is, and I think what this speaker was driving at is that if we do something for 40 days consistently,
yeah,
we have a really good shot of that becoming long-term behavior.
we do.
Uh,
Yeah,
and so we are working on that ourselves. We're not perfect in this area, but we want to
no,
encourage you. We want to encourage you to pay attention to your physical fitness because
yeah,
we believe that will help you lead better,
right. And
lead
I think
longer.
back to your question, like what could you be like 40 days from now if you decided to take that step and you had a plan to do it? You could run your first 10-mile race 40 days from now, depending on your shape. You could run your first marathon. You could run your first 5K. That's 3.1 miles. And to run it without stopping is an excellent goal. To walk it without stopping, depending on where you're at in life.
That's right.
But without a goal, without the upcoming race, I have less of a reason to train. Without an upcoming bathing suit season, I have less of a reason not to eat 3 donuts instead of one. There's
Yeah.
So what is your motivation? And then make a plan. And then the hardest part of every marathon is the first step, the first day when you've decided you're going to run one, because that took more than the last step at the completion of the marathon. It's that will to change, to commit.
Yeah, and if you, I'd just add this real quickly. If you haven't exercised in a million years, I would,
Yeah,
you better check with your doctor and say, "Hey, doc, am I in good enough shape to like, what can I do that's safe
yeah,
for me to
yes.
do physically?" And I think that would be a good step. Okay, here's the second area. What would happen if over the next 40 days, we develop better relational hygiene?
I love that
Um,
phrase. Yeah.
yeah. I was thinking, Jim, what would happen if I spent and you spent and we spent at least 1 hour a week with a close friend,
Yeah. Oh,
whether
wonderful.
it's phone or Zoom or
Yeah.
preferably eyeball to eyeball, because
Yeah.
we know physiologically that the eyeball to eyeball encounters
Yeah.
produce uh better results in your brain.
Yeah.
Not
Right.
That doesn't mean Zoom isn't good or phone calls aren't good.
Yeah.
But the best, if you can, is eyeball to eyeball. Man, how
Yep.
much better would our life be
Yes.
if we committed to that?
Yeah.
1 hour a week. I'm going to carve out space one
Yep.
hour a week. Can I just be totally transparent here?
Yeah.
Um, there are times when I've gone a month
Mm.
and that whole month went by and I think, did I spend any time
Wow.
with my close friends that wasn't work related?
Right.
It was personal stuff, like where
Yeah.
I'm letting that friend know what God has been talking to me about in the
Yeah.
Word. Um,
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
with each other about our wins and our struggles. Um,
Huge.
what impact would that have on our mental and emotional fitness
Yeah.
if we had better relational hygiene? Jim, we know pastoring just sets up for isolation, right? It's the kind of role that
Yeah.
that just breeds isolation. You don't even have
Yeah.
to work at it. It happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and boy, I've been thinking about that, man. If I spend an hour a week with a close friend and we're just kind of being honest with each other,
Yeah.
what would that do for me? And so I wanted to hear your thoughts on that one, Jim.
Yeah. I They did a study during COVID. I'm not sure if you saw it. I forget where it came from, but if you're a Republican, your mental health went down. If you're a Democrat, your mental health went down. It was all the demographics, how old you were, color of your skin, socioeconomic. The only group that went up in happiness during COVID, during the lockdown part of COVID, were those who were a regular part of worship. And you can
Huh.
say, well, that's God. I think it certainly is. That's worship. It certainly is. But I think it's people as well. I mean, that's why we come together. I can worship. I know God outside of community, but in community, there's that beautiful exchange of I'm having a bad day and you're having a good one. We eye to eye contact, sympathetic nervous system sync. Your strength becomes my strength. My burden becomes your burden. You mourn with those who mourn. You
Yeah,
rejoice with those who rejoice. And so it's interesting that every indicator went down as much as 12 points, which is a huge shift.
sure it is.
And people attended church weekly, were regular in worship. It went up 4%. In other words, people were happier during COVID, if they're a regular part of human relationship than those who had no job, Netflix binged all day, just and stressed about toilet paper. So I
Yes.
think if there's any evidence that we prosper, the more people and the more of the right people at the right times in the right ways that we have in our lives, certainly the better the results of our soul. And again, if the leader wins, everybody they serve wins. So
Right.
I think sometimes we forget that though, don't we? Like I need this person needs me and that person needs me and that person needs me. And eventually if every arrow goes out of you and no arrows come into you, there's going to be a breakdown. You cannot give what
Right.
you do not have. So there are people that are just fun to be with. There are people that share a same weird hobby that you might have. There are people that we're created for fellowship. It's not good that man be is alone. You quote that
Right.
often. Of course, he's talking about Eve, but it wasn't like it was just Adam and Eve and everything's good. There's a command to be fruitful and multiply. The church is a community. It's a gathering.
Right.
These are all God's ideas. So for us to go against these or to ignore them in some vain attempt to be noble, it's really silly. I'm being mean today, aren't I? I'm vain attempt to be normal, and all preachers are fat. I'm just having a bad day. I'm just being honest, I guess. But it's a like be. It is so good. Why wouldn't you exercise? It is so
Yeah.
good. Why wouldn't you spend time with people? We've exhausted something. We're believing a lie. We've lost our mojo, and you got to get it back. 40 days.
Yeah. I've had a lot of pastors tell me they don't have any friends.
Mm,
And so when we're working through that together,
yeah.
so we attack it in a variety of ways. One is
Yeah.
we tell them, get on your knees
Yeah.
and ask God to give you what he already knows you need. You're not
Yeah.
asking God for something luxurious here. You're not asking
Yeah.
God selfishly. It's not
Yeah.
selfish. You're asking him for something he knows you desperately need. Get
Yeah.
on your knees and say, God, I need friends. Give
Yes.
me some good friends that I can trust and be myself around, that I can talk to. And
Yeah.
then we get practical. Like, man, do you like to golf? Join a golf league. Do you like to bowl? Join a bowling league.
Yeah.
Man, hang out with people that don't even know Jesus.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll
Yeah.
locate some friendships there that will surprise you. You're like, wow, I never thought I would be a friend with this person.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess the overarching thought there is be proactive, be intentional,
Yeah.
work on it. Jim, when I've got something that I'm working on that is a big project, big projects are overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always do it in bite-sized chunks. I never sit down and try to solve the whole project in
Right.
3 hours.
Yeah.
Uh,
No.
what I do is every week I set aside some time
Yeah.
to think about and work on little pieces of that project. And guess what happens? Amazing miracle, right? In a couple of
Yeah.
months, that project
Yeah.
is knocked out.
Right.
Same deal here. Work on this.
Yeah.
Work at it. Figure it out. If you're in a small rural community, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And if you live in Montana and you're in a small rural community, you got to drive 100 miles to find somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not saying this part isn't highly challenging, but you know what? Just because it's challenging doesn't mean we shouldn't try and we
Yeah.
shouldn't work at it.
You know,
And
if
so
if if I
go
could share
ahead.
a personal story, I have
Sure.
friends, but I'm not on Facebook, but Facebook friends. Just because somebody likes a post or says I'm your friend doesn't mean you're a friend. And I was
Right.
kayaking 3 or 4 years ago with a buddy of mine just at a local river, and we'd been spending time together. Our wives are good friends. We were good friends. And this may sound a little weird, but I said, "Hey, I've not had a best friend in a long time, and I'm curious if you might there's no rings. I'm not gonna get on one knee. We're not getting married. And I assume this is like in all things in life, there's a season for this, and we'll get busier, go separate ways, whatever. But in this season of our lives, I'd like to have a best friend. Are you interested in being my best friend? He said, he kind of looked at me shocked. He said, I thought we already were, so that was a nice reciprocation. So every week our wives go to one restaurant, we go to another restaurant. Our wives go for a walk, we go for a walk. And it's nice because I'm not walking away from my marriage to have a friendship, because her life is busier
Yes.
than mine, and neither is his wife. So, and that was an answer to my prayers. I needed a friend that I could be honest with about the pressures, the fears, the insecurities, the hopes, the dreams, processing stuff we do when we're together. We process each other's dreams and
Right.
ask questions. And you really got to have a long-standing trust to say, this is what I think, or this is what I'm afraid of, or this is my dream. So
Mhm.
even that is a suggestion. Maybe propose the idea to
Oh, I
somebody
love
that
it.
you're already a good friend with. I'd like to formalize this in a way so that
Yeah.
so that if I am struggling, I'm coming to you. And if you're struggling, I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
been
good.
really good for my soul to have a good friend, a best friend.
I love it. So here's the
Yeah.
third area, and this is a relational thing too, but I mean,
Yeah.
and that is, what would happen in the next 40 days if I tried and had a game plan for a better marriage?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what would happen over the next 40 days if we consistently carved out communication space
Yeah.
with our spouse? Um, you know, and we
Mm.
actively listened
Yeah.
to our spouse and they actively listened to us. Um, what would happen if we encouraged each other on a regular basis to pursue our God-given dreams and not give up on that?
Yeah.
If we, here's a real simple one, but what would happen if every week we sat down and we just compared calendars
Yes.
and and worked through that together? That's uber
Yeah.
practical, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I would suspect that there might be some folks listening or watching who have had some calendar misfires with
Yes.
their
Oh yeah.
spouse, and it's created
Yeah.
some tension,
Yeah.
perhaps. Um, and I say, think about nurturing that most important human relationship in and of itself. I don't need to do that because it's going to have an influence on all this other stuff. I mean, it's worthy of that. It's standalone, right? Worthy.
Yeah.
But here's the truth. What impact would a better marriage have on our ministries?
Yes. Yes.
So, Jim, help me with that one. I'm not answering
Yeah.
a ton of questions today. I think I'm asking more than I'm answering,
Yeah,
but
well, that's good though, because 40 days from now, the argument about you didn't tell me that we had to go to 3 open houses on Saturday. I because that this happened to me. There's the finish line. I got all Saturday off. I can do this, I can fix that, I can do those, I can take a nap. To my wife saying, "Hey, just so you know, tomorrow we got 3 open houses to go to. We got to get this. I got to wrap these gifts. And I was just stunned, like, babe, I like one of the main things the army did to break down your soul was to take you on a long run and then come back, so it's an out and back, and then come back to the place you started. And everybody thinks we're done there. They're running for the finish line, everything they got left, and then they ran past the barracks and started. Every step became 2 steps because you had to come back again. And the formation fell apart, and everybody's throwing up. And I just you can't do this to me. you can't you can't you can't change the goal. You can't extend the finish line on me. And so because of that, there's a regular meeting now where we go over a monthly and weekly calendar. We say, what are you doing this week? What am I doing this week?
that's
And
good.
that way, and it's what's nice then is I know she's getting her hair done or something. Well, that's free time for me. I can do whatever I want. And we're going to open houses. That's great because I'm going to schedule my week around that. So no surprises because it's unnecessary, unneeded tension.
Yep.
Um, and marriages are stressed when we believe we're being taken for granted, when we believe we're no longer the most important, when we believe that we're being used, if you will,
Yep.
marriages really suffer. So as uber practical as this is, like if you're newlywed, please listen to John. And if you're an oldie wed like I am, please listen to John because making sure the other one feels valued and treasured is a huge priority in marriage. And so if you're not communicating at this level, there's going to
Right.
be surprises and disappointments.
I think this is true. I can't prove this. I just believe it to be true
Yeah,
that the most influential thing you can do as a leader is to have a great marriage.
I agree. I agree completely. Yeah.
And so if you improve that part of your world, Josh Spurlock, one of our favorite guests,
Yeah.
talks about limbic resonance.
Yeah.
And that's where two nervous systems engage and influence each other just
Yeah.
by being in proximity to each other.
Yeah.
And if I've got a great marriage and I'm around people, the that somehow that gets, and
Yeah.
Josh gave us this term, limbic resonance. What's happening inside of me is translated to
Yeah.
the people I'm around.
Yes.
And so um I never learned that in Bible college. Like I had a marriage and family class, and it was, it was important. I went to a
Yeah.
great Christian school, Oral Roberts.
Yeah.
Um, but either I was sleeping during that part of the lecture,
No. Yeah.
or they didn't say, look, those of you who are studying for ministry, man, your marriage is so integral
Yeah.
on its own, but it will influence your ministry in ways that nothing else will.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
we want to just lend a little bit of weight to it by saying, look, if you want your church to get healthy, man, work on your marriage.
Right. And in 40 days as a common goal, sit down with your
Yes,
spouse and say, what can we do in the next 40 days that would improve our marriage?
I
And
love it.
don't come up with a list of 47 things.
Oh,
One, two, three things.
yeah.
Yeah, I want you home at a certain time. That would mean so much. Let's meet with our calendars. Let's talk over our budget. Where are the stressors that are in your marriage because of you didn't discuss it, you don't understand, you're not on the same page. What do I make you feel valuable or do you feel used? And if you feel
Yeah.
used, then what can I do to prove to you that's not the case? It's funny you're talking about our ministries being blessed through this. I was in a car in Costa Rica last week with a group of college students on a missions trip, and I was regularly talking to my wife. I'd have her on the video thing, and hey, everybody say goodnight to Dina. Hey, good night, Dina. All this kind of stuff. The last day we're driving to the airport, and I called her to say, hey, every step here is a step towards home. I can't wait to see you. So I'll be exhausted, but you're the first thing that I'm coming towards when I get home. And I hung up the phone, and a young man, probably 21 years old, he leans forward. He said, I just want to say this. I love the way you talk to your wife. And I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, just you've made her a part of this trip. And I said, well, I haven't made her a part of this trip. Like her and I and me and her, she's the pretty part of us. And he said, I want that in my marriage. Now, let me ask you this. If I'd have preached these magical sermons and all of Costa Rica came to Jesus, and I'm arguing with my wife on the phone, it undermines everything that God did because of what I did in my marriage. And by the way, I didn't preach magical sermons, and all of Costa Rica still needs Jesus, as far as I can tell, right?
Mm.
But I have a young man now saying I want that. We do affect people with our marriages more than we probably know, and just because you're okay bickering doesn't mean the world around you is being shown what is right. So, amen
Right.
to everything you just said, John. That's what I'm trying to say.
So let's do one more, Jim, and then
Yeah,
we'll wrap up. What would happen over
yeah,
the next 40 days if I had a deeper walk with Jesus?
yeah,
If I tried and I had a plan for a deeper walk
yeah.
with Jesus, and so some of the things that the thoughts as I was meditating on that one, Jim, were what would happen over the next 40 days if we weren't in a hurry
Mm,
in our devotional time?
yeah, right on.
Where we just weren't in a hurry. Like, God, I got to speed this thing up today because I got a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
what would happen over the next 40 days if we followed a plan for Bible reading and study?
yeah.
And when I was a brand new Christian, it was all about volume. I mean, I was
Mm,
reading 6, 7, 8 chapters a day.
yeah.
As an older Christian, Jim, it's more about pondering,
Yeah.
and it's less about volume, and it's more about
Yeah.
reading smaller sections of scripture and thinking about them and praying through them and
Yeah.
appreciating some of the iconic themes.
Yeah.
I just got through Galatians and
Yeah.
Ephesians, and Jim, it was like reading it for the first time.
Wow.
And part of it was I wasn't in a hurry. I wasn't
Yeah.
in a rush. I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to consume too much.
Right.
Um, what would happen over the next 40 days if we had a game plan for our prayer assignment?
Yeah.
I believe in structuring our praying. I thank the Lord for a couple of guys that were in my life right away after I gave my life to Jesus. They taught me how to pray. And
Right.
they said, John, you just can't sit there and just pray all kinds of buckshot prayers.
Yeah.
You work on a list, work off a list. And those guys motivated me Now, does God ever call audibles on my structured praying? Of course he does, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there are times when the Lord says, John, I absolutely want you not to talk at all during
Yeah.
your prayer time. I'm doing the talking
Yeah.
today. So just sit there and let me talk to you. And so I understand that you
Mm,
know that goes back and forth, and you need to be sensitive to the Lord. But here's what I would rather do. I would rather have a game plan and work off a game plan and have God make adjustments
yes.
and say, hey, we're going off plan today and we're going to do something different.
Right.
I would rather do that than have no plan
Yeah.
and feel
Right.
like my prayers are like all over the map. Look,
Yeah.
the older you get as a Christian, the more your prayer assignment grows.
Mm.
I believe that's true.
Yeah. It's a great statement.
It's enlarged over
Yeah.
time just because the people in your circle are enlarged. You've
Yeah.
got daughters-in-law and sons-in-law and
Grandkids.
granddaughters
Yeah.
and nieces and nephews and
Right.
all that
Staffs.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. You have staffs.
Yeah.
And so your prayer assignment just grows over time. So what would happen if you had a game plan for that? What would happen over the next 40 days if you and I wrote down in a journal what jumped
Mhm.
out at us when we read the Bible,
Right.
or what we heard God whisper into our heart during private times of prayer and worship? I heard
Right.
somebody say that, a preacher say this a week ago. I was listening to him on our way to our home church. We listened to this guy. I won't say who it is.
Yeah.
Every Sunday morning, and he said,
Mm.
God's not going to scream at you. He's going to whisper.
Right.
And
Huh.
listening for the whisper. What would happen if we jotted some of that stuff down?
Yeah.
And as you develop this beautiful 40-day rhythm, man, how does that deeper walk with Jesus impact your human relationships? How does it
Yeah.
impact your family? How would it impact your calling?
Yeah.
I think I would like to believe in my heart that everybody who got called into a ministry or and I happen to believe, look, if you're a Christian, you are in the ministry, but your ministry might not be within the confines of a church.
Yes.
It
Absolutely. Yeah.
might be in
Absolutely.
your business, it might
Yeah.
be you're a school teacher, whatever, wherever you
Yeah.
work as a
Right.
Christian, that there's ministry there. So I
Yeah.
believe that. What impact would a deeper walk with Jesus have on those relationships that
Yeah.
are part of your
Yeah.
world? So Jim, what do you think?
Yeah. I came across a quote and I'll try to make it fit this. Said if a parent stops loving a child, the child doesn't stop loving the parent. They stop loving themselves. That was
Mm,
interesting. And so I
wow.
think if there's a disconnect between us and God, if for some reason our circumstances have convinced us that he's distant, he doesn't care. There's two things that happen. One is there's that distance, but the other thing is we'll stop appreciating what God sees when he sees us. So
Mm,
again, back to these vital relationships, we kind of went in reverse order. I know you
yeah.
started with the hard one, physical stuff, but really, the kingdom kind of flips these things, right? That if we
Yeah.
know if we know that God loves us, it gives us no other alternative but to love ourselves. If we love ourselves, look what we can be as a spouse. When we are unconditionally loved, we have unconditional love now to give away. Look what it
Right.
does for our friendships. Look what it does for our physical health, right? So even though that working out may seem the most difficult because there's a physical exertion, I think we ended in the best place possible, which is in the next 40 days. If you decided to and you had a plan to 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 receive the love of God through scripture, through prayer, through marriage, through
Mm,
fellowship, through exercise, I really believe that in 40 days, those neuron paths that led us towards discouragement, defeat, they've been erased. It takes
yeah.
28 days to get rid of these physiologies of our brain and to establish new physiology in our brain. So we're well beyond that into 40 days, which is a biblical number for testing. It's a biblical number for establishing something new. So I think this is beautiful. I think it's timely. There's about 40 days left of summer, if you will, that we can,
Yeah.
before the kids go back to school, I'm going to be closer to God, closer to my spouse, in better shape, a better friend. On your mark, get set, go. So I
Yeah.
think it's a well-timed episode for everybody.
And so Jim, is my final thought here is that nothing worth having comes easy.
Yeah.
Nothing worth having
Yeah.
comes easy. Progress in life, in
Mhm.
leadership, requires a plan. It requires a time stamp.
Yeah.
It requires accountability.
Yes.
And so I want, and I know you want, our listeners and watchers, and we're challenging ourselves as well to
Yeah.
consider the question, what are we 40 days away from if we tried and we had a plan? So hopefully today you are challenged, you are encouraged, and maybe you even have a
Yeah.
couple of ideas to help walk some of this out.
Yeah. Right on. Well, guys, I hope this has been a blessing to you. It's been a blessing to me. And I knew what we were going to be talking about. I'd read the notes. I knew where we were going, but just talking this out, hashing this out has gone from inspiration to really a needed application. And I hope it's done the same for you. I hope that you saw what it was about. You listened to it and now you're ready to start. If we can help you in any way at Converge, we'd love to do that. Say, what do you mean by a plan? I made a decision, but I don't have a plan. What would that look like? Or how do I get the nerve to make a plan or to make a decision? We'd love to help you with that. We're just as John and I are friends, we're always one phone call away from having new ones. And we hope that we can bless you. We hope that this will be good for you, be accountable to the friends you have. But Converge is always here. And we love you guys. So on behalf of John and I, thanks for joining us today. We hope to talk again and continue this conversation real soon as you continue to lead from alignment.